Have you ever heard a little girl sing a song that could break a billionaire's heart? If you've ever lost someone you loved, or found them again when it was almost too late, this story will touch your soul. Watch till the end, and tell us where are you watching from tonight. Your comment might just remind someone that love, no matter the years, always finds its way back. The spotlight at the Dallas Dreams talent show burned like a miniature sundae. 7-year-old Lila Monroe stepped into it, her white dress trembling with every heartbeat. The microphone was too tall, the crowd too big, but her eyes wide, blue, and steady searched the darkness with a courage that didn't belong to a child. "This song," she said softly, "is for my sick mommy." From the front row, Ethan Cole checked his watch. The CEO of Cole Dynamics wasn't used to sitting still for community events, but his PR team had insisted. His company had donated $200,000 to the show, and his presence would photograph well. He planned to stay 20 minutes, clap politely, and leave before anyone noticed. Then the girl began to sing, "Eternal Hearts That Beat as One Under the Same Bright, Shining Sun." The notes floated through the theater, pure and haunting. Ethan's phone slipped from his hand and landed on the carpet with a dull thud. Every muscle in his body went rigid. Those lyrics. His lyrics belonged to a song he had written 8 years earlier with the only woman he had ever loved. Sarah Monroe. She'd vanished one night without explanation, leaving him a single line on a scrap of paper. "You'll thank me someday for leaving." He never had. Now that same melody was rising from a child's throat, word for word. Ethan stared at her, breathless. The tilt of her head, the fragile wrists, the way she reached for the high notes, it was all Sarah. But there was something else too, a resemblance that hit deeper than memory. The jawline, the faint sprinkle of freckles near the left ear. His own. Backstage, Sarah Monroe pressed one trembling hand to her chest. The chemo made her bones ache, but pride pushed through the pain. She'd ironed that thrift store dress until midnight, stitched tiny pearls along the collar to make it special. Watching her daughter step into the light felt like seeing hope itself walk on 2 feet. The audience leaned forward, captured. Lila's voice carried more than music. It carried prayer, grief, and belief in something good. Surviving. A hush fell over the crowd. Even the restless teenagers stopped whispering. For Ethan, the theater blurred. He was back in that tiny apartment years ago. Cheap beer, cold pizza. Sarah's laughter echoing off the walls as she strummed her old acoustic guitar. They'd written Eternal Hearts together during one of those reckless nights when they believed love could fix anything. He'd gone on to build an empire. She'd disappeared into silence. And now, impossibly, their song was alive again through a child who could only be theirs. The last note quivered like a held breath. Then came thunderous applause. People stood, cheering, wiping tears. Judges nodded to each other, whispering, "Winner." Lila curtsied shyly and smiled at the audience, her cheeks flushed. In that moment, Ethan Cole, billionaire, perfectionist, master of self-control, was just another man undone by a child's voice. He applauded too, but his hands shook. Behind the curtain, Sarah ran to her daughter. "You were beautiful, baby," she whispered. "Your daddy would be so proud." Lila looked up with sleepy excitement. "Do you think he heard me?" Sarah swallowed the ache in her throat. "I think," she said carefully. Somehow he did. Ethan sat frozen as the next act stumbled through a dance routine. He couldn't stop replaying the song. The timing fit. The child looked 7, 8 years since Sarah left. The math was merciless. He pressed a hand over his mouth, a wave of realization crashing down so hard it almost hurt physically. When the show ended, he left without speaking to anyone. Outside, Dallas shimmered under humid April air. He didn't call for his driver. He needed the night, the city, the sound of his own footsteps to think. Somewhere between Elm Street and the parking garage, he stopped, leaned against a light pole, and tried to breathe. 8 years of searching for answers, and tonight a 7-year-old had given him one. He started to reach for his phone, then remembered he'd dropped it. Cursing under his breath, he turned back. But before he could move, a vibration hummed in his pocket. He must have picked it up without thinking. The screen glowed with an unknown number and a message that chilled him. "You looked like you'd seen a ghost tonight." He typed quickly. "Who is this?" No answer. Then, after a pause, 3 words appeared. "She still sings your song." Ethan spun around, scanning the street. Just a few theatergoers, a taxi, the glow of a taco truck at the corner. Nothing unusual, and yet he felt watched. Inside, Sarah and Lila waited for their rideshare. The stage manager, Frankie Dawson, stopped by to hand Lila a ribbon. "You made a lot of folks cry out there, sweetheart." Lila grinned. "Even the man in the front row. The one in the fancy suit." Sarah froze mid-smile. "What man?" "The one who dropped his phone." He looked sad, but happy too. Sarah forced a small laugh. "Maybe he just loved the song." Lila tilted her head. "He looked like the picture in your music book. The one with the guitar." Sarah's breath caught. "That's just a memory, sweetheart." She bent down, fastening the strap on Lila's shoe to hide the trembling in her hands. "Let's go home." They stepped into the warm Texas night. The air smelled of asphalt and rain about to fall. Sarah pulled her scarf tighter, the familiar fatigue creeping in behind her ribs. She told herself it was impossible. Ethan Cole lived in another world now. Corporate towers, private jets, the kind of life that forgot ordinary people. He would never be here, never in this crowd. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone had seen through the years, right into her secret. A flash of lightning turned the wet pavement silver. Sarah guided Lila into the rideshare car and forced herself not to look back. Across town, Ethan rode the elevator to his penthouse, the city glittering beneath him like spilled diamonds. He poured a glass of scotch he wouldn't drink and opened his laptop. A quick search, Sarah Monroe, Dallas. Dozens of results. Old bar gigs, a local music award, then a recent listing from the Methodist Dallas Medical Center, oncology patient volunteer. His throat tightened. She was alive. He zoomed in on the tiny profile photo, a woman wearing a headscarf, smiling faintly, her eyes weary but unmistakably hers. The caption beneath the picture read, "Local volunteer helps children find courage through music." Ethan stared at the screen until his vision blurred. All the years he'd spent convincing himself she was gone, angry, or worse. And all this time, she'd been here in the same city, sick, alone, raising their daughter. He grabbed his car keys, then hesitated. Storm clouds pressed against the glass wall of his office, lightning crawling over the skyline. He knew, if he went to that hospital tonight, everything would change. He wasn't ready, not for the truth, not for the guilt. The phone buzzed again, the same unknown number. "If you want answers, follow the music." The message made the hair rise on the back of his neck. He stepped closer to the window, the city lights reflecting his pale face. Somewhere out there, a child was humming the chorus of Eternal Hearts. He could almost hear it through the thunder, the soft rhythm, the promise that love never dies. He whispered into the empty room, "Sarah." The word felt foreign, sacred, dangerous. Down on the street, a busker sat beneath an awning, strumming a guitar through the drizzle. The tune floated upward, faint, but familiar. Ethan pressed his palm against the glass. The same chords, the same melody. Coincidence or fate? Cracking open the door one last time, he listened as the final lyric rose through the storm. "Love will guide us every day." His pulse hammered. He grabbed his coat, heading for the elevator, unable to stay still another minute. By morning he promised himself he would know the truth. He would find Sarah Monroe. He would meet the little girl with his eyes and her voice. But as he reached the lobby, another message appeared on his phone, short and sharp as thunder. "She's running out of time." Ethan froze. Rain pounded the pavement outside, blurring the lights of downtown Dallas. Somewhere in that storm, a woman he'd never stopped loving was fighting for her life, and the daughter he'd never known was singing their song to save her. He tightened his grip on the phone, heart racing, as the elevator doors slid shut behind him. The sound of the guitar still echoed in his ears, soft and pleading, leading him toward the one truth he could no longer ignore. Tomorrow, he would walk into Methodist Dallas Medical Center, and nothing in his world would ever be the same again. The next morning broke gray and restless over Dallas. Rain clouds still hung low, pressing against the skyline like heavy thoughts that refused to clear. Ethan Cole hadn't slept. The image of the little girl, the song, those eyes played on a loop in his mind until dawn. He sat in his kitchen, untouched coffee growing cold beside the newspaper he hadn't read. The words, "Follow the music," kept circling back like a whisper he couldn't ignore. At 9 a.m., he grabbed his keys and headed out. His driver, Mark, gave him a startled look. Ethan usually worked from home on Saturdays, but today he said only, "Methodist Dallas Medical Center." His voice was calm, but his hands gripped the leather seat so tightly that the knuckles showed white. The city slid by in streaks of gray and silver. Traffic lights blurred through rain on the windshield. Every block closer felt like peeling away another layer of the life he'd built, the empire, the reputation, the careful distance from anything resembling pain. He didn't know what he'd say when he saw her. He didn't even know if she would let him in. But he needed to see her face again, to hear her voice and understand why she left. Inside the hospital, fluorescent lights hummed with sterile indifference. The scent of antiseptic hit him first, sharp, clean, too honest. At the reception desk, he cleared his throat. "I'm here to see Sarah Monroe. She's listed as a volunteer in the oncology department." The nurse, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, gave him a practiced smile. "Visiting hours start at noon for patients, but volunteers are already on duty." "Let me check the schedule." Her fingers clacked on the keyboard, and for a moment, Ethan's heart raced like a man waiting for a verdict. "She's on the pediatric floor," the nurse said. "Music therapy room, second level. Follow the signs." Music therapy. The words hit like a chord from their past. He followed the hallway until he reached a glass door, painted with cartoon animals and musical notes. Through it, he saw her. Sarah Monroe sat in a semicircle of children, a guitar across her lap. Her scarf was patterned with sunflowers, her frame thinner, fragile even, but her smile carried the same warmth that used to light up an entire room. The moment she strummed the first chord, every child leaned closer. She didn't just play music, she gave it away, like medicine. Ethan froze in the doorway, breath caught somewhere between disbelief and awe. For 8 years he had imagined this meeting 1,000 ways. Anger, tears, accusations, but not this. Not her laughing softly with children whose heads were bald from chemo, not her voice soothing fear with melody. He wanted to go in. Instead, he stood there, hidden, watching the woman who'd once been his whole world. Then her eyes lifted. Just briefly, scanning the room, and found him. The guitar stopped mid-strum. The silence was small but sharp. A few children looked up, puzzled, before Sarah forced a gentle smile. "Keep playing, kids. I'll be right back." She stood, walked to the door, and stepped into the hallway, closing it behind her. For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them hummed with everything unsaid. "Ethan." Her voice was barely a whisper. "You shouldn't be here." He swallowed hard. "You're alive. After all this time, you're right here, 10 miles from my office. And God, Sarah, I thought you were gone." Her hands trembled slightly as she crossed her arms. "I didn't want you to find me." "Then why let our daughter sing our song?" Her breath caught. "You know about Lila. I know she's mine." His voice cracked on the last word. "Sarah, I saw her. I saw you." Tears welled in her eyes before she looked away. "Ethan, please. This isn't the place." "Then tell me where is," he said quietly. "I've waited 8 years for an answer that never came. You owe me that much." Sarah's shoulders sagged, exhaustion written in every line of her body. I don't owe you anything, Ethan. You have your life. I have mine. Lila has never gone without love. Even if it wasn't yours. He flinched. That's not fair. Neither was what Rebecca did, she said suddenly, and the name hit him like a punch. Rebecca? He repeated. Sarah pressed her lips together, regret flickering across her face. Forget it. No. Don't you dare do that again. Don't shut me out. Her composure cracked, the calm surface of 8 years, fracturing into something raw. She showed me proof, Ethan. Pictures, bank records, evidence that you were with her, that you'd used her investment money to wine and dine other women while I was dreaming about a life we'd never have. Ethan stared at her, stunned. Sarah, that was all fake. Rebecca forged everything. I found out after you left, but I had no way to reach you. I couldn't risk it, she said softly. You were rising fast. I didn't want to be the scandal that dragged you down. He shook his head slowly. You were never the scandal. You were the reason I made it at all. Their silence stretched, heavy with what-ifs and wasted years. Down the hall, a child's laughter broke the moment like sunlight through fog. Ethan took a cautious step closer. Sarah, are you sick? Her eyes flickered, guilt and fear mingling. It's early-stage breast cancer. The treatments are working. Don't look at me like that. I'm okay. He exhaled shakily, a mix of relief and heartbreak flooding him. You shouldn't have faced that alone. I've faced worse, she said simply, but her voice trembled. You can't just walk back into our lives and fix everything with money and regret. I'm not here for money. I'm here for you, for her. Her hands clenched around the edge of her scarf. Lila doesn't know who you are. Then tell her. Not yet. She looked away, blinking fast. Let me figure out how. Ethan nodded slowly. Then I'll wait. They stood there in fragile truce until a nurse called Sarah's name. Miss Monroe. Dr. Patterson's ready for you. Sarah turned toward the voice, then back to Ethan. Please, leave before Lila sees you. He hesitated, then nodded. I'll call. Don't, she said gently. If we're meant to talk again, we will. He wanted to argue, but something in her eyes, fear, hope, maybe both stopped him. Instead, he watched her walk away down the corridor. Sunlight from a high window glinting on the metal rail of her IV stand. He left the hospital feeling like a man half redeemed, half condemned. Back in his car, he sat for a long time, staring at the hospital doors. Then he pulled out his phone and sent one text to his security chief. Find everything you can about Rebecca Hale. Quietly. That night, Sarah tucked Lila into bed. The child hummed Eternal Hearts softly, her voice a sleepy echo of innocence. Sarah brushed hair from her forehead, eyes heavy with both love and dread. Mommy, Lila murmured, do you think Daddy will ever hear me sing again? Sarah froze. Why would you say that? Because last night, Lila said, eyes half closed. I saw him. He was in the front row, crying. Sarah's heart pounded. You must have imagined it, sweetheart. But Lila only smiled. No, I think he heard me. Sarah sat there long after her daughter drifted to sleep, her hand pressed to her chest, whispering to the dark. Oh God, Ethan. Please don't dig too deep. Across town, Ethan's phone buzzed. His investigator's message appeared on the screen. Rebecca Hale. Current position. Vice President. Technova Industries. Moved to Dallas 6 months ago. Beneath it, a photo loaded Rebecca, smiling at a charity gala, champagne in hand. Her arm linked with the senator's. Ethan's jaw tightened. So you're still here. Lightning flickered outside his window, just as it had the night before. He poured another drink and whispered into the empty room. This time, you don't get to win. But somewhere inside Methodist Hospital, Sarah lay awake, staring at the ceiling as her monitor beeped softly. Her phone buzzed with an unknown message. You shouldn't have let him see you. Some secrets were meant to stay buried. Her breath caught. The sender ID read, RH. Rebecca Hale always knew how to find a weakness. 8 years hadn't changed that, if anything, success had sharpened her cruelty into something almost elegant. From her corner office at Technova Industries, 38 floors above downtown Dallas, she looked out at the skyline and smiled faintly. Power was an art form, and she had mastered every stroke. The email she'd sent to Sarah Monroe was deliberate, timed for maximum effect. Just one line. You shouldn't have let him see you. The moment she hit send, she leaned back in her leather chair, sipping espresso, satisfied with the ripples she'd set loose. She had destroyed Ethan Cole once before, back when she was his investor and his secret admirer. He had rejected her, humiliating her in front of a boardroom full of men. She'd promised herself that night that he would pay. And he did. Now, after years of careful rebuilding, she was stronger than ever. Wealth, influence, political connections, all of it hers. What Ethan didn't yet know was that she still controlled key shareholders in his company. One leak, one rumor, and his empire would tremble again. At that same hour, Ethan sat in his study, reviewing the report his investigator had compiled. Dozens of documents, photographs, and financial trails connected Rebecca to Technova's recent acquisitions companies that had mysteriously underbid Cole Dynamics in 3 major contracts. It wasn't coincidence. It was strategy. He stared at her smiling photo on the report cover. Rebecca Hale, the woman who had forged evidence, broken 2 hearts, and stolen nearly a decade from his life. And she wasn't finished. Not this time. He muttered, closing the file. Meanwhile, at Methodist Hospital, Sarah was trying to breathe past the panic that email had sparked. The message was brief, but its tone was unmistakable. Rebecca knew. She always knew. Sarah sat by the window, watching light drizzle paint streaks on the glass. The world outside kept moving. Unaware that the ghosts of her past were tightening their grip again, she reached for her phone, tempted to delete the message, to pretend it never happened. But the number was unfamiliar, masked. She couldn't trace it, even if she tried. For the first time in years, Sarah felt the same old fear, the one that had driven her away from Ethan before. Rebecca had eyes everywhere. The woman had made it clear 8 years ago. Walk away from him, or I'll destroy him and the child you carry. Sarah had believed her then. She almost believed her now. A soft knock broke her thoughts. Nurse Ellen poked her head in. Hey, honey. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Sarah forced a smile. Just a bad dream. Well, Dr. Patterson wants another round of blood work before your next chemo, Ellen said gently. And your little singer's waiting down the hall. She said, she's practicing for the family concert. Sarah laughed softly. That child could out-stubborn a hurricane. Wonder where she gets it from, Ellen teased before leaving. Sarah sighed. God help me, she whispered. Across town, Ethan drove toward his office tower, his mind a storm of calculations. He knew confronting Rebecca directly was dangerous, but waiting was worse. The longer he hesitated, the more control she'd have. When he arrived, his assistant Grace greeted him nervously. You have a visitor waiting, sir. Says it's urgent. Ethan frowned. Who? Grace hesitated. Rebecca Hale. The name felt like ice sliding down his spine. He walked into the conference room, bracing himself. Rebecca stood by the window, wearing a navy pantsuit and a smile as polished as her diamond earrings. Ethan, she said, voice smooth as silk. You look older. 4,000 days of betrayal will do that to a man, he replied coldly. Her smile didn't waver. You're still dramatic. I came to make peace. Peace? He laughed once bitterly. You forged evidence, destroyed a relationship, and nearly cost me everything. What kind of peace are you selling today? The profitable kind. She crossed her arms. Technova is offering a merger. 50-50 partnership. You could double your market share overnight. Ethan stared at her. You expect me to join forces with the person who ruined my life? Business isn't personal, Rebecca said, stepping closer. But if you make it personal again, I'll release proof that you're secretly funding a woman's cancer treatments. One who conveniently has a 7-year-old daughter. Think about how that'll play in the press. Your investors don't like emotional men, Ethan. His jaw tightened. You're bluffing, am I? She slid a file across the table. Inside were photographs Sarah at the hospital, Lila walking out of the theater, even Ethan leaving the same parking garage hours later. You were followed, Rebecca said softly. And your fairy tale reunion? It ends when I say it does. Ethan's hands curled into fists. You think you can still control me? Rebecca's voice dropped to a hiss. I already do. She turned toward the door, pausing just long enough to add, accept the merger, or lose everything again. Then she left, her heels clicking like gunshots against the marble floor. For a long time, Ethan didn't move. The file sat open before him, a silent threat that burned like acid. He wanted to tear it apart, but he knew she had digital copies, dozens of them. Rebecca always planned 3 moves ahead. By sunset, the city had turned gold and gray. Sarah sat in the hospital garden, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, watching Lila chase a paper butterfly one of the volunteers had made. For a moment, the world seemed almost gentle. Then her phone buzzed again. Another message. This one from an unknown number. If you want to keep her safe, tell him to walk away. Sarah's fingers went numb. She looked across the courtyard instinctively, as if expecting to see someone watching. But there were only nurses, families, and the faint hum of traffic beyond the hospital walls. Ethan called that night, his voice raw with anger. Rebecca came to my office. She knows about you, about Lila. Sarah, what else has she done? Sarah closed her eyes. Too much. We can go to the police. No, she said quickly. You don't understand. She has friends in high places, lawyers, politicians, investors. If we push her, she'll burn everything, including us. Ethan was silent for a moment. Then we fight smart. I'll find a way. Promise me, Sarah whispered, voice trembling. Promise me you won't make her angry again. I can't promise that, Ethan said quietly. But I can promise this. She won't touch you or our daughter again. Sarah didn't answer. She ended the call, her pulse racing. Then, for the first time, she noticed a red light blinking faintly in the corner of her hospital room, a camera lens hidden near the vent. Her stomach dropped. Someone was watching. The blinking red light pulsed like a heartbeat in the corner of Sarah Monroe's hospital room. At first, she thought it was a trick of exhaustion. But when she stood on the chair and looked closer, her stomach turned. A camera, small, black, almost invisible, was tucked behind the air vent. Her hands trembled. She glanced toward the door, half expecting someone to walk in. The hospital room suddenly felt smaller, like the walls were listening. She ripped the device out of the vent and stared at it. There was no hospital logo, no serial sticker, just a faint engraving on the back. R.H. Sarah's breath caught. Rebecca, she whispered. For a moment, she couldn't move. It wasn't just paranoia anymore. Rebecca really was watching her, tracking her, maybe even recording her conversations with Ethan. Panic clawed at her chest. If Rebecca had eyes in this room, what else did she know? She shoved the camera deep into her purse, just as Nurse Ellen walked in with a clipboard. You all right, honey? You look pale. Sarah forced a smile. Just a headache. Ellen frowned. You want me to call Dr. Patterson? No, Sarah said too quickly. I'll be fine. I think I just need some air. Ellen nodded slowly but didn't push. All right. Just don't overdo it, okay? As soon as the nurse left, Sarah slipped down the hallway, clutching her purse. Every fluorescent flicker above her head felt like a spotlight. She ducked into the staff elevator and pressed the button for the basement. When the doors closed, she finally allowed herself to breathe. In the dim hospital storage level, she found an old computer workstation near the maintenance room. She plugged in the tiny camera, praying it wouldn't need a password. The screen blinked to life one folder, labeled simply, Live, Feed. She clicked it. Dozens of video thumbnails filled the monitor. Her own room. The pediatric wing. Even the music therapy space where she taught children to sing. Each clip time-stamped. Each one recorded from different angles. Sarah's pulse quickened as she clicked the most recent file. There she was sleeping, pale under hospital lights. The angle shifted, zooming in on her face, her chest rising and falling. And then Lila appeared, creeping in quietly at dawn, curling up on the chair beside her mother's bed. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. It wasn't just surveillance. It was invasion. Rebecca had been watching their lives. Her trembling fingers found a flash drive in the desk drawer. She copied everything. Halfway through the transfer, footsteps echoed down the hall. Heavy, deliberate. She froze. A shadow stretched across the wall before her. "Miss Monroe," said a low voice. "You shouldn't be down here." Sarah turned. A tall man in hospital scrubs stood in the doorway, a security badge pinned to his chest. But something about him felt wrong. His smile too sharp, his tone too familiar. I was looking for the restroom," she said quickly. "Down here?" he asked, stepping closer. "Basement's off limits." Sarah's hand tightened around the flash drive in her pocket. "I got lost." He looked at her for a moment, then smiled without warmth. "Let me walk you back." Her mind raced. His badge said, M. Grant. The name meant nothing, but the small earpiece in his right ear did. He wasn't hospital staff. They rode the elevator in silence. Sarah's heart hammered. She didn't dare look at him. When the doors opened on her floor, she mumbled thanks and walked toward her room, but before she entered, she glanced back. He was still watching her. That night, Ethan couldn't shake the unease gnawing at him. He'd called the hospital twice, no answer. Sarah's phone went straight to voicemail. He poured another cup of coffee and stared at the photographs Rebecca had left in his office. If she was threatening Sarah again, he couldn't wait for proof. He needed action. He called his head of security. "I want eyes on Methodist Hospital tonight." Discreet. Full sweep of the oncology wing. Look for anything unusual. Cameras, personnel changes, new hires. Send me updates directly. "Got it," the man replied. Ethan leaned back, running a hand through his hair. He'd faced mergers, lawsuits, and market crashes, but nothing terrified him like the idea of Sarah and Lila in danger. He should have told her to come with him when he had the chance. Meanwhile, Sarah lay awake, clutching the flash drive under her pillow. Lila was asleep beside her, tiny hand resting against her mother's arm. The rhythmic beep of the monitor was the only sound in the room. Every time the hallway lights flickered, Sarah imagined Rebecca watching from somewhere unseen, waiting to strike. Near midnight, her phone buzzed. No number. Just one message. "You shouldn't have touched my camera." Sarah's blood ran cold. Her eyes darted to the vent empty, but the sense of being watched grew unbearable. She slid off the bed, crept to the window, and pulled the curtain shut. Another message arrived. "You've kept my secret long enough, Sarah. Now it's time Ethan learns the truth." Her trembling fingers typed back, "Leave us alone." No reply. She stayed awake until dawn, staring at the door. Across the city, Ethan's phone buzzed just as he was about to fall asleep. It was his security chief. "Sir, we found something." Ethan sat up. "What?" "Unauthorized surveillance devices in 3 hospital rooms. One belongs to a Sarah Monroe." Ethan's pulse spiked. Pull the footage. Who planted them? The man hesitated. We're still checking. But there's something else. The hospital's night guard, Marcus Grant, vanished an hour ago. His security clearance was fake. Ethan's voice hardened. Find him. And protect her. He ended the call, his mind already racing through worst-case scenarios. In the hospital, dawn light crept through the blinds. Sarah stood by the window, exhausted but determined. She turned the flash drive over in her hand and whispered, "Not this time." Then the door opened behind her. She turned and froze. Standing there wasn't a nurse or a doctor. It was Rebecca Hale. Rebecca Hale stood in the doorway of Sarah Monroe's hospital room, like a shadow that had learned to smile. She looked flawless. Perfect makeup, tailored gray suit, and diamond earrings that caught the morning light. But the air around her felt colder than the sterile room itself. "Good morning, Sarah," she said softly. "You look better than I expected." Sarah's body stiffened. "What are you doing here?" Rebecca stepped inside, closing the door with a slow, deliberate click. "You make it sound like I'm a stranger. I paid for this hospital's last charity gala, you know. I could walk into any room I please." "That doesn't answer my question." Rebecca smiled thinly. Still direct. "I almost missed that." She took a few steps closer, heels echoing on the tile. "We need to talk about Ethan." Sarah clenched her jaw. "Stay away from him." "Oh, sweetheart." Rebecca sighed, shaking her head. "You really think you can protect him?" "I protected him for 8 years. From you, from scandal, from himself." "You lied to me," Sarah snapped. "You forged photos, stole my life, and made me disappear." Rebecca's tone stayed calm, almost amused. "And yet, here you are, alive, beautiful, with a daughter who sings. You should thank me." Sarah stared at her, stunned. "Thank you? For what? For destroying everything I loved? For saving you from him?" Rebecca said, her voice dropping to a hiss. "Do you have any idea what he would have become with you around? A sentimental fool. I turned him into a titan." Sarah took a step back, her hand trembling against the bedrail. "You're insane." Rebecca's smile didn't fade. "Maybe. But I'm also right." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small black tablet. With one swipe, a series of video clips filled the screen. Sarah in her hospital bed, Lila playing guitar, Ethan visiting the building the day before. Rebecca tilted the screen toward her. "You've been my favorite project to watch. Such resilience. Such misplaced hope." Sarah's stomach twisted. "You've been filming us." "I film everything I build," Rebecca said softly. "And I built this." "You need help," Sarah whispered. Rebecca laughed. "Oh, honey, I don't need help. I need closure." She placed the tablet on the bed, the video looping silently between frames of Sarah and Lila. "Here's how this works," Rebecca continued. "You will tell Ethan that you never want to see him again, that the reunion was a mistake, that Lila isn't his." Sarah shook her head, horrified. "I won't lie to him again." Rebecca leaned forward, her perfume sharp and suffocating. "If you don't, I'll make sure every investor, every journalist, and every shareholder knows that the billionaire saint has been secretly bankrolling his ex-lover's cancer treatments and her illegitimate child. The board will bury him. His company will collapse before the quarter's end. You'll take him down with you." Sarah's pulse pounded in her ears. "You can't control everything." Rebecca's eyes glittered. "Watch me." The door suddenly opened. Lila ran in, holding a drawing. "Mommy! Look, I made us." She froze when she saw Rebecca. Rebecca's mask slipped back into warmth instantly. "Well, aren't you adorable?" she said, crouching to eye level. "You must be Lila." "Oh." Lila hesitated, glancing at her mother. "Who are you?" I'm an old friend of your mommy's, Rebecca said smoothly. We used to sing together. Sarah's throat tightened. Lila, sweetheart, why don't you take that to Nurse Ellen? Show her your picture, okay? But I wanted. Please, Sarah said, forcing a smile. Just for a minute. Lila frowned but obeyed, skipping out of the room. The door shut behind her. Rebecca straightened. Pretty child. Shame she looks so much like him. Sarah's control finally broke. Get out, she shouted. If you come near her again, You'll what? Rebecca said quietly. Call the police? Tell them that your millionaire ex was blackmailed by his former investor? You have no proof, Sarah. Only fear. And I've spent years turning people's fear into currency. Her words dripped like poison. Then her expression softened just slightly. It doesn't have to be war. Do as I say, and you'll never hear from me again. Live your quiet little life. Let him go. You'll all be safe. Sarah's voice shook. You're threatening a child. Rebecca leaned closer, whispering, I'm protecting my empire. Without another word, she turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving Sarah trembling so violently she had to grip the edge of the bed to stay upright. Minutes later, Nurse Ellen returned. You okay, sweetie? That lady said she was a family friend. She's not, Sarah said through clenched teeth. If she comes back, don't let her in, Ellen frowned. You got it. When the nurse left, Sarah reached under her pillow, pulled out the flash drive, and stared at it. Proof. She finally had it. But if she used it, Rebecca would retaliate. And she wasn't sure Ethan could withstand another scandal. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Ethan. I'm on my way. We need to talk. Sarah's first instinct was to warn him not to come. But she couldn't. She needed him to see the truth, to know the kind of danger they were in. She texted back. Be careful. She was here. When Ethan arrived 20 minutes later, security tried to stop him, but he brushed past. His expression was storm-torn fury and desperation. He closed the door behind him, his voice low but shaking. She threatened you, didn't she? Sarah handed him the flash drive. It's worse than threats. She's been recording us, me, Lila, the hospital. Everything. Ethan stared at the drive like it was dynamite. How long? Since the talent show. Maybe before. He slipped it into his jacket. I'll handle this. Ethan, no, Sarah said, grabbing his arm. You can't confront her. She's dangerous. You don't understand what she's capable of. I understand perfectly, he said, his voice low and lethal. And I'm done letting her win. Lila's laughter echoed faintly from the hallway, a sound so pure it made both adults pause. Ethan looked toward the door, then back at Sarah. She deserves to grow up free from this. I know, Sarah whispered. But how? Ethan met her eyes. By giving Rebecca exactly what she wants, until we're ready to take everything back. Sarah frowned. What do you mean? He pulled out his phone, dialing a number. Grace. Schedule a meeting with Rebecca Hale for Monday morning. Tell her I accept the merger. Sarah gasped. You can't be serious. Oh, I am, Ethan said quietly. If she wants me close, I'll get close enough to end her myself. Sarah's face paled. Ethan, she'll destroy you. He looked toward the window. The Dallas skyline, burning orange under the setting Sunday. Not if I destroy her first. At that moment, on the hospital's security camera feed, Rebecca watched from her car, a faint smile playing on her lips. She turned off the tablet displaying the live footage of Sarah's room and whispered to herself, Welcome back to the game, Ethan. Then she dialed a number. Move the girl, she said. Rain fell in thin, silvery sheets over Dallas that night, tracing nervous patterns against the hospital windows. Sarah Monroe sat upright in bed, too anxious to sleep. Lila was gone temporarily. She reminded herself, taken by Nurse Ellen, to stay in the pediatric wing. For her own safety. The hospital director had insisted after a security concern was reported, though no one told Sarah what it was. But Sarah knew. She could feel Rebecca's fingerprints on everything. Her phone had been silent for hours. Ethan had promised to call as soon as his meeting with his legal team ended, but it was nearly midnight. She kept staring at the door, waiting for his voice. Down the hallway, a janitor's cart squeaked softly. The building felt deserted, eerie in the storm's glow. Sarah wrapped her blanket tighter, whispering, "Just one more night, baby. Then we'll be free." Across town, Ethan sat in the dim conference room of Coal Dynamics, surrounded by shadows and strategy. Grace, his assistant, flipped through the documents Rebecca had sent as part of her merger proposal. It was clean. On the surface. Too clean. "She's hiding something," Grace said, tapping a manicured finger on the contract. "Clause 27 gives Technova complete data access to all proprietary software once merged." "That's not business, Ethan. That's theft." Ethan nodded grimly. "Exactly what I expected." He reached for the flash drive Sarah had given him and connected it to the secure company server. The files loaded slowly, each one confirming their worst fear: Rebecca had planted surveillance throughout Methodist Hospital. Grace gasped softly. "Good God. She's watching patients? That's criminal." "She's not after the patients," Ethan said quietly. "She's after Sarah and Lila." As the videos played, Ethan's expression hardened. The timestamps aligned perfectly with the days he'd visited the hospital. Rebecca had eyes on them from the start. Then one clip froze his breath. A feed from the hospital parking garage, time-stamped that very morning. A man in scrubs, Marcus Grant, the fake security guard, was loading a sleeping child into the back of a van. "Lila." Ethan's heart nearly stopped. "Oh my God." Grace covered her mouth, horrified. "Is she?" "She's alive," Ethan said, voice trembling with fury. "She has to be. That bastard didn't take her on his own." Rebecca ordered this. He grabbed his phone, dialing Sarah's number. No answer. He tried Nurse Ellen voicemail. "Grace, get me the head of hospital security now." When Sarah's phone finally buzzed, she snatched it up. Ethan's voice was breathless. Urgent. "Sarah, listen to me. Lila's been taken." Her world tilted. "What?" "No. She's in the pediatric wing." "She's not," Ethan said, his tone cracking. "I have video proof. Rebecca sent one of her men. We think she's still in the building. Stay in your room. I'm on my way." Sarah's knees buckled. "Oh God, Ethan." "Sarah, listen," he said firmly. "Lock your door. Don't trust anyone. I'm coming." The line went dead. Sarah stumbled to the door, twisting the lock. Her breath came in shallow bursts. She tried calling the nurse's station, no signal. The storm outside had knocked out parts of the cell network. She pressed her ear against the door. Nothing. Minutes crawled by like hours, until a soft knock broke the silence. "Miss Monroe?" A man's voice called gently. "It's Dr. Patterson. I need to check your IV line." Relief flooded her chest. She unlatched the door, then froze. Through the narrow crack, she saw the reflection of a gun in the man's belt. Her instincts screamed. She slammed the door shut and shoved a chair under the handle. The man rattled it once, twice. Then his voice turned cold. "You shouldn't make this harder than it has to be, Sarah." She backed away, searching for anything she could use as a weapon. Her gaze landed on the metal 4 stand. He kicked the door open. The chair flew backward, splintering the frame. The man stepped inside, face half hidden by his hood. "Where's the flash drive?" Sarah gripped the IV stand. "You'll never find her," she spat. The man laughed darkly. "Oh, we already did." He lunged. Sarah swung the IV pole with all her strength. It connected with his shoulder, sending the gun clattering across the floor. He cursed, grabbing her wrist, forcing her backward. She fought, nails scraping against his arm, but he was stronger. Suddenly, the door burst open again. Ethan Cole barreled in like a storm in a suit. his face a mask of fury. He tackled the man into the wall, the gun skidding under the bed. They struggled violently, fists and knees colliding, until Ethan landed a blow that sent the intruder sprawling. "Are you okay?" he gasped. Sarah nodded, shaking, barely able to stand. "He said they have Lila." Ethan's expression hardened. "Not for long." He knelt, snatched the gun, and yanked the man up by the collar. "Where is she?" The man laughed, blood trickling from his lip. "You're too late. She's already on her way out of Dallas." Ethan's jaw tightened. Wrong answer. He hit him once, hard enough to rattle teeth. "Where?" "Abandoned airstrip. Route 45. The man spat. "Private jet. Midnight." Ethan looked at his watch. 11:42 p.m. He turned to Sarah. "You need to stay here. Lock the door after I leave." "I'm coming with you," she said, her voice fierce despite her fear. "Sarah." "She's my daughter," she interrupted, eyes blazing. "I won't let her face that woman alone." For a moment, their eyes met two people broken by lies, bound now by something stronger than fear. Ethan nodded once. "Then, we move fast." They left the hospital under the cover of rain. Ethan's black SUV idled at the curb, engine humming like a heartbeat. He handed Sarah a blanket and helped her inside. As they sped through the slick Dallas streets, Sarah whispered, "What if she's already gone?" "She's not," Ethan said. "Rebecca likes control. She'll want to see us break before she leaves." They drove in silence, the windshield wipers keeping rhythm with their racing hearts. When they reached Route 45, Ethan killed the headlights. Ahead, through sheets of rain, an old hangar stood under dim floodlights. Two SUVs were parked near the tarmac. A small private jet idled, its door open, engines whining. "There," Sarah whispered. Ethan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Stay low. Don't move until I say." He stepped out, the rain drenching his clothes instantly. Moving through the shadows, he approached the hangar. Inside, he saw her, Rebecca Hale, standing at the foot of the plane, umbrella in hand, her smile cruel, even in the storm. Next to her stood Marcus Grant, holding Lila by the arm. The child's face was pale but dry-eyed, brave, like her mother. Rebecca's voice cut through the rain. "I told you he'd come." Ethan froze. She turned, her red lipstick shining under the floodlight. "Always predictable, my dear Ethan. You never could resist a rescue." He stepped into the light. "Let her go." Rebecca tilted her head. "Oh, I will. After you sign everything I've prepared." Behind her, Marcus shoved Lila toward the plane stairs. The girl cried out, "Daddy!" Ethan's heart cracked. "Lila." Sarah appeared beside him before he could stop her, soaked to the bone but unshakable. "You want closure, Rebecca?" she shouted. "You'll get it." Rebecca's smirk faltered just a flicker. A flash of lightning illuminated the scene. Ethan, drenched and furious. Sarah, trembling but defiant. Rebecca, poised like a queen of ruins. Then came the sound no one expected, a gunshot, splitting the night. Sarah screamed, and the rain swallowed everything. The gunshot shattered the night like a scream that didn't belong to any one person. Lightning flared above the airstrip, blinding white against the storm. The echo rolled through the empty hangar, bouncing off steel and rain. Ethan lunged forward instinctively. "Sarah!" But it wasn't her blood on the ground. Marcus Grant, Rebecca's hired man, stumbled backward, clutching his shoulder. The gun clattered to the wet concrete. For a heartbeat, everyone froze. Lila was crying, Rebecca shouting, Ethan's pulse roaring louder than the thunder. Sarah stood trembling, both hands wrapped around the pistol Ethan had dropped minutes earlier. Smoke curled from the barrel. "You don't touch my daughter," she gasped, her voice shaking but unbreakable. Rebecca's face twisted not in fear, but in fury. "You stupid, desperate woman," she hissed. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Ethan moved quickly, pulling Sarah behind him. He kept one hand raised toward Rebecca. "It's over, Rebecca. Call off your men." Rebecca let out a sharp laugh, cold and cruel. "Over? Oh, darling. This is where it begins." From the shadows near the hangar doors, two more figures appeared armed, dressed in black. Ethan's heart slammed in his chest. He turned to Sarah. "Get Lila. Run." But Sarah didn't move. Her legs felt frozen, her body anchored in terror. Rebecca's calm returned, the kind that always preceded her cruelty. "You think you can just walk away with your happy little family after everything?" "No, Ethan. You took my reputation, my career, and the man I loved. You never loved me," Ethan said, voice low. "You loved control." Rebecca's lips curved. "Control is the only kind of love that lasts." She turned to the two men. "End this." They raised their weapons. Ethan pushed Sarah down behind a crate, bullets slicing through the rain. Sparks flew where the metal struck the hangar wall. He grabbed the fallen pistol, returned fire once, twice. One of the men fell, the other ducked behind the SUV. "Stay down," Ethan shouted. Lila whimpered from behind the wing of the plane. "Daddy, close your eyes, baby," Sarah called out. "Don't move." The storm raged around them, a symphony of chaos and thunder. Ethan crawled along the slick floor, his breath sharp with adrenaline. He spotted Lila crouched beside a crate of cargo straps, her small hands shaking. He reached her, just as another bullet ricocheted nearby. Rebecca shouted over the rain, "You can't save them both, Ethan. You never could." He looked back. Sarah was pinned near the rear of the hangar. The wounded Marcus, staggering toward her, with a broken wrench in his hand. Ethan's instincts split in two. Sarah saw the panic in his face and screamed, "Go! Get her out!" Ethan's eyes burned. "Not without you." She fired again. The wrench dropped. Marcus crumpled to the floor. Sarah's hand shook violently, but her eyes stayed locked on Ethan's. "Go!" He lifted Lila into his arms and ran. Rain and tears blurred together. Behind him, thunder rolled, like a heartbeat gone mad. He ducked behind the SUV, shielding Lila from the wind. "Daddy, Mommy's still there," she sobbed. "I know," he whispered, voice breaking. "I'm going back for her." Rebecca's voice echoed over the storm. "You're too late, Ethan. I warned you what happens when you defy me." She grabbed Sarah by the wrist, forcing her to her knees. "All that talk about love, about second chances. How does it feel knowing you'll destroy him all over again?" Sarah glared up through the rain. "You destroy yourself. Every time." Rebecca raised the pistol. "Then let's end the cycle." A deafening crack split the air, but this time, it wasn't Rebecca's gun. A black SUV tore through the perimeter fence, headlights blazing. Two men in tactical gear spilled out, shouting, "Federal agents, drop your weapon." Rebecca spun, firing wildly. The agents dove for cover. Ethan seized the chance. He sprinted back inside, slamming into Rebecca from behind. The gun went flying, landing near Sarah. Ethan pinned Rebecca against the wet floor, his voice low and shaking with rage. "You took 8 years from me. You touched my child. You don't get another second." Rebecca smiled up at him, blood at the corner of her mouth. "And yet you still don't see it, do you?" "See what?" Ethan spat. "I never needed your company," she whispered. "I needed your name." He froze. She laughed softly, even as the agents closed in. "While you were busy playing the hero, I moved everything. Every dollar, every patent, every trace of your legacy under Cole Hale Enterprises. And guess what, sweetheart? I made you sign the merger papers." Ethan's stomach dropped. That contract wasn't symbolic, she finished for him. It was legally binding. The agents reached them, shouting for Rebecca to stay down. She didn't resist. She looked almost serene, like the chaos was her symphony. They cuffed her, reading her rights, while medics rushed toward Marcus's body. Ethan turned to Sarah, drenched and shaking. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, tears mixing with the rain. "I'm okay. But Lila, she's safe," he said, pulling her into his arms. For the first time in 8 years, the embrace didn't feel borrowed. It felt like home. Sirens wailed in the distance. The agents escorted Rebecca to a patrol car, but she turned her head just enough to meet Ethan's eyes. "You think this ends with me?" she called. "You've built your empire on secrets, and one of them still belongs to her." Ethan frowned. "What are you talking about?" But she only smiled a smile that promised unfinished business and ducked into the back of the car. Sarah's hands trembled. "Ethan." What did she mean? He shook his head. She's lying. Yet deep inside, something twisted because Rebecca Hale never lied. Not when she wanted to break someone completely. The agents took statements for hours. Paramedics cleaned Sarah's cuts and checked Ethan's bruised ribs. Lila sat wrapped in a silver blanket, clutching Sarah's hand. "Mommy," she whispered. "Are we going home now?" Sarah hesitated. "Yes, sweetheart, we're going home." But when they finally pulled away from the airstrip, Ethan's phone buzzed. Grace's name lit the screen. He answered, exhausted. "Grace, I can't talk right now." "You need to," she said urgently. "We just got a call from the bank. There's a new authorization code. Rebecca's lawyers filed a claim 3 hours ago. They froze your assets, Ethan. Every account tied to your name." Ethan went still. "That's impossible. She's in custody." Grace's voice cracked. "Not for long. Her bail hearing's been moved to morning." Someone powerful intervened. He closed his eyes, rain hammering against the SUV roof. Sarah squeezed his hand. "We'll start over. We still have each other." He looked at her, then at Lila, asleep in the back seat. "We will," he whispered. "But first, I'm going to end this." Miles away, inside a luxury holding cell, Rebecca sat calmly on her cot. Her attorney, sleek, well-dressed, and smiling, handed her a phone. "It's done," he said. "By dawn, you'll be free." Rebecca smirked, dialing a number. "Good." When the line connected, she said only 4 words. "Phase 2 begins now." Dawn broke over Dallas, with the kind of quiet that only follows chaos. The city looked peaceful from afar, gold light spilling between glass towers, streets glistening after the storm. But inside Ethan Cole's penthouse, the world was anything but calm. Stacks of documents covered the table, contracts torn open, bank reports scattered like shrapnel from a financial explosion. Ethan paced the room, phone pressed to his ear. "There has to be a way to reverse it, Dan. She forged my signature." His lawyer's voice crackled through the line. "I've already spoken with the board. Rebecca's merger filing wasn't forged. It was authenticated. She used a copy of your signature from previous contracts. It's airtight." Ethan stopped. "You're saying she legally owns half my company?" "Not half, Ethan. All of it. The document lists you as retiring founder, effective immediately. Every account, every patent, every property under Cole Dynamics has been transferred." Ethan's grip tightened on the phone until his knuckles went white. "She did it while I was fighting to save my family." "That's what she does," Dan said softly. "I'm sorry." He hung up without replying. For a long moment, Ethan just stood there, the skyline, staring back at him through the glass. He'd fought for a decade, to build something that mattered, something clean, honest. And in a single night, Rebecca Hale had taken it all. Behind him, Sarah appeared in the doorway, pale but composed. "How bad is it?" He turned, eyes hollow. "She owns everything, even the house we're standing in." Sarah crossed the room, taking his hand. "Then let it go." He looked at her, incredulous. Let it go? Sarah, that company wasn't your life, she interrupted gently. You were my life once. You still are. Lila's future is your life. Don't let her destroy that too. Ethan exhaled slowly, rubbing his forehead. You sound just like you did before you left. Sarah smiled faintly. Then maybe you're finally listening. Her calm was a steady anchor in the storm still raging inside him. What happens now? He asked. We disappear for a while, she said. Start fresh. Somewhere Rebecca can't find us. But even as she said it, a chill passed between them. Because deep down, they both knew Rebecca Hale didn't lose track of people she collected them. Hours later, the courthouse steps buzzed with reporters. Rebecca emerged between two attorneys, immaculate as ever. Cameras flashed. Microphones thrust forward. Miss Hale, is it true you've taken over Cole Dynamics? Were you involved in last night's shooting? Did Ethan Cole assault you? Rebecca smiled with effortless poise. I was the victim of a violent misunderstanding, she said smoothly. Mr. Cole's emotional instability has been a concern for years. My only goal is to ensure his company and his legacy survive this tragedy. Tragedy? One reporter asked. Rebecca tilted her head. You'll see soon enough. She climbed into her car and shut the door. The smile faded instantly. Status update, she said to her driver. The man, Marcus Grant's replacement, handed her a tablet. Phase 2 has been initiated. The girl's school records, hospital files, and DNA reports. Everything's been transferred to your private archive. Rebecca's eyes glimmered. And the mother? Under surveillance, as ordered. She leaned back, satisfaction curling her lips. Perfect. When the time's right, we'll remind the world that little Lila Monroe isn't who she thinks she is. The driver hesitated. Ma'am, forgive me, but what is she? Rebecca smiled faintly. She's leverage. Meanwhile, Ethan, Sarah, and Lila drove south toward Austin, trying to leave Dallas behind them. The city receded in the rearview mirror, like a wound slowly closing. Lila sat between them, holding the stuffed penguin Ethan had bought her that morning from a gas station. Is the bad lady gone now? She asked. Sarah brushed hair from her daughter's forehead. For now, sweetheart. But we're going somewhere new. Somewhere safe. Will Daddy come too? Ethan smiled weakly. I'm not going anywhere without you. They stopped at a small diner off I-35, the kind of place that smelled like bacon, grease, and coffee no matter the hour. For a few moments, it felt almost normal, like life had pressed pause. Sarah watched Ethan cut pancakes for Lila, the way his big hands trembled just slightly when he smiled. She thought of all the nights she'd pictured this family breakfasts, laughter, no fear. And now that it was real, it felt fragile, like glass warmed by sunlight. Ethan, she said quietly, when this is over, if it ever is, promise me you'll stop chasing revenge. He looked at her, eyes tired but burning. You really think she'll stop chasing us? Sarah didn't answer. She just reached across the table, fingers brushing his. Outside, across the street, a dark sedan idled. Inside, a man in a suit lifted his phone. They're heading south, he said into the receiver. Rebecca's voice came through the other end. Good. Don't follow too closely. I want them to feel safe. That night, they reached a small lakeside cabin. Ethan had once bought under a private name, a secret getaway he'd nearly forgotten. He lit a fire, while Sarah tucked Lila into bed upstairs. Rain began again, soft and steady against the roof. Sarah joined him by the fireplace. Feels strange, she said softly. Like we're living someone else's life. Ethan stared into the flames. Maybe that's what freedom feels like. Oh, but neither noticed the small blinking light beneath the cabin's window frame. Far away, in her penthouse, Rebecca watched the feed flicker to life. The camera's angle showed Sarah's face illuminated by firelight, Ethan beside her, unaware. Rebecca poured herself a glass of wine. Phase 2, she murmured. Rebuild the empire. and remind them that some ghosts don't die. They multiply. She swiped her tablet, opening a new file labeled Project Lila. Inside were sealed birth records, adoption transfers, and a document stamped with an official Texas state seal. At the bottom, under father's name, one line was blank. Rebecca touched the screen, smirking. Let's see how long love lasts without the truth. Back at the cabin, Sarah rested her head on Ethan's shoulder. You know, she whispered, for the first time in years, I'm not afraid. Ethan kissed the top of her head. Then I'll make sure you never have to be again. Outside, lightning flashed across the lake, painting their reflections against the glass, 3 silhouettes, framed in fragile peace. But deep in the storm, under the hum of distant thunder, another sound began to rise, a faint hum of engines, the rhythmic beat of rotor blades cutting through the night. Lila stirred upstairs, sensing something before the adults did. She walked to the window, clutching her penguin, eyes wide as the sky lit up. Mommy, she whispered. The bad lady's coming back. Sarah jolted awake downstairs as the faint rumble grew louder. Ethan grabbed his phone, no signal. Outside, a helicopter's spotlight swept over the cabin, flooding the windows in white. Rebecca's voice echoed faintly through the speaker system inside the aircraft, cold and triumphant. You should have known, Ethan. I never lose twice. Who? Ethan pulled Sarah close, shielding her as the windows shattered from the wind pressure. And above the chaos, as glass rained down around them, Lila's small voice broke through it all, steady, clear, unshaken. Daddy. I remember her face. Ethan turned toward his daughter, confusion cutting through fear. What do you mean, sweetheart? Lila's eyes filled with tears. She was there. The night Mommy got sick. The night you left. The realization hit Ethan like lightning. Rebecca hadn't just stolen his company. She'd been there from the beginning. The story, Eternal Hearts. The Texas melody is not merely a tale of love and loss. It's a reflection of what it means to rebuild, to forgive, and to keep faith in the face of betrayal. Beneath the layers of suspense, power, and revenge lies a deeply human truth. That the greatest battles are often not fought in boardrooms or courtrooms, but within the heart. Ethan and Sarah's journey reminds us that success without compassion is hollow, and that even after years of pain, love can still find its way through the cracks of broken trust. The narrative shows how forgiveness is not weakness, it is an act of courage. It teaches us that redemption begins, not when the world forgives you, but when you forgive yourself. For audiences, especially adults who have weathered storms of their own, the story becomes a mirror. It asks, how much of what we call ambition is really fear of being forgotten? How much of what we call control is just the inability to let go? Through Ethan's fall and Sarah's quiet strength, we see that love doesn't need perfection to survive. It only needs truth. Their daughter, Lila, becomes the symbol of hope, the reminder that innocence, music, and faith can still heal what power destroys. Ultimately, Eternal Hearts speaks to the timeless human desire to start again, to build something real after everything false has burned away. It tells us that life's most valuable empire is not made of wealth or reputation, but of moments shared with those who truly see us. It is a story about second chances, about the melody that never dies, and about how even in darkness, love remains the only thing worth saving.